We're in the midst of the period of Sefirat Ha Omer right now, between Pesach and Shavuot, time of counting of the Omer, and I'd like to explore a little bit the deeper meaning of this mitzvah of Sefirat Ha Omer. Even the very phrase itself can be a kind of guiding question for us. We say we're counting the Omer. What does it mean to count the Omer? We're not counting the Omer. The Omer was an offering that was brought on the day after Pesach, an offering of grain, of barley, from the harvest at that time. It's considered a lesser kind of offering, mostly animal food, but it was the harvest of the time. We bring an Omer of barley, and then we count from the day after Pesach until Shavuot, 50 days. We're counting the days. So what's the phrase Sefirat Ha Omer, counting the Omer, really mean? Even the berakhah uses that phrase as well. So we should ask a deeper question: what is this really all about? So let's go through the verses themselves from the parasha. It says in Vayikra Perek Kaf Gimel, "Daber el bnei Yisrael v'amarta alehem, ki tavo el haaretz asher ani noten lechem, uktzartem et ktsira, v'havetem et omer reshit ktsirchem el hakohen." Speak to Bnei Yisrael and say to them, when you come into the land that I am giving you, and you reap its reaping, you shall bring an omer of the first of your harvest to the Kohen. Bring an omer. The verse continues, "Benif et ha-omer lifnei Hashem lirtzonechem mimacharat ha-Shabbat yinifenu ha-Kohen." You should wave the omer before Hashem to be acceptable for you from the day after Shabbat. The day after the Shabbat, the Kohen should wave it. From the day after the Shabbat, this phrase itself was the source of controversy, as it says in the Gemara Menachot, controversy between the Prushim and the Tzedukim on the meaning of HaShabbat. Is it the day after Pesach, as the Prushim understand it, and that's our accepted view? The Tzedukim thought that it referred to actual Shabbat itself. But in any case, it's an unusual phrase, mimacharat ha-Shabbat, from the day after the Shabbat, from the day after Pesach, this offering is brought. And then the next verse says, "V'lechem v'kali v'karmel lo tochlu ad etzem hayom hazeh, ad havyachem et korban elokechem, chukat olam l'dorotechem b'kol moshvotechem." Okay, bread and roasted grain or fresh grain you should not eat until that very day, this very day of the bringing of the Omer, until you have brought the offering to Hashem, your God. This is a statute forever for all your generations in all of your dwelling places. So the bringing of the Omer itself is what's called a heker and a matir. It's a recognition and a release, a permission given to us to begin to eat the new grain, the grain of the most recent harvests. We can't eat those grains. It's the grains that would have grown since the last bringing of the Omer. We can't eat those grains until the Omer is brought. So it's a heker and a matir. Then the Torah continues now with the mitzvah of Sefirat Ha Omer, "Usfartem lachem mimacharat ha-Shabbat miyom haviachem et omer ha-tnufa sheva shabbatot tmimot tihiyena." And you should count for yourselves from the day after the Shabbat, from the day of your bringing of the Omer that is waved, 7 full weeks they should be. Okay, so the counting then begins with the bringing of the Omer, and the first aspect of the mitzvah of counting is the counting of the weeks. And then the next verse says, "Mimacharat ha-Shabbat ha-Shvi'it tisperu 50 yom v'hikraptem mincha chadasha l'Hashem." And from the day after the Shabbat, that the seventh Shabbat, in other words, this is the day after the seventh week, the completion of the seventh week of counting, in this case Shabbat here would mean the week, you should count 50 days, then bring the new mincha offering, the new grain offering to Hashem. In this case, the new grain offering is the shtei alechem, the 2 loaves of wheat from the wheat harvest, which becomes a matir, a permission to eat the new, and to bring the new offerings to the Mikdash of wheat. Okay, so here again we see this phrase mimacharat HaShabbat, the day after the Shabbat, and a counting of not only weeks but 50 days as well. Okay, so one of the questions we would have in this counting is, what's the purpose of counting? Are we counting from something, in other words, from Pesach, or are we counting towards something, towards Shavuot? What's the purpose of the count? In which direction are we going in terms of our intent in the counting? So here there's an Agadah that's brought by the Ran at the end of his commentary on Pesachim. He says, "B'Hagadah, Gam ken omru b'shasha amar lehem Moshe ta'avdun et Elokim al harazeh, amru lo Yisrael Moshe Rabbeinu emotai avodah zo." Okay. In an Agadah, it says that at the time that Moshe Rabbeinu told Bnei Yisrael, "You will serve God on this mountain," Yisrael said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "When will this service occur?" Amar lehem l'sof 50 yom. So Moshe said to him, at the end of 50 days. Vayumonim kol echad ve'echad la'atzmo. So each person of Israel counted each and every day for himself. Mikan kavu chachamim l'Sefirat Ha Omer. And from this, the chachamim established counting of the Omer. The Ran is wondering what's going on with this Agadah. Sefirat Ha Omer is from the Torah, not from the rabbis. But what he's talking about here is that even when we do not have a Beit HaMikdash, and no ability to offer the Omer, still the mitzvah of counting the Omer continues, and this is according to the opinion that today, without the Beit HaMikdash, counting the Omer is derabanan, and the Ran is saying there's an Agadah that defends this position. Kolomar bizman hazeh she'einanu mevi'in korban v'lo Omer ela mchashvin 50 yom l'simchat HaTorah k'mo she'amanu Yisrael ba'oto zman v'zeh vadai derech midrash. Okay, so this is an example of, even though now when we don't have the Mikdash and we don't have the Omer, there's still a count for 50 days until Simchat HaTorah, but he's calling the joy of receiving the Torah at Har Sinai. So too, today we do this count, even though it's d'Rabbanan. All right, the rabbis and the poskim are split on this question of whether Sefirat Ha Omer today is rabbinic or it's from the Torah. The Rambam was the opinion it's from the Torah. Many other poskim that it's from the rabbis. Still, this Agadah that the Ran brings shows that the counting of the Omer seems to be an anticipation of Matan Torah and Kabbalat Torah at Har Sinai. It's counting towards Shavuot rather than from Pesach, which makes the question of the phrase Sefirat Ha Omer even stronger. What is it that we are counting each of these days? From Pesach, the Omer, or towards Shavuot, receiving the Torah? Here we have there's an insight that we get from a unique statement in Vayikra Rabbah, this week in the Parshat Emor. It's a statement by Rabbi Berakhah. I have to say, in general, whenever you see a statement by Rabbi Berakhah, pay attention. He was an Amora from the 4th generation. He was a student of Rabbi Chelbo. Rabbi Chelbo taught in the area of Tiberia in the Galil, and so likely Rabbi Berakhah is also from the area of Tiberia and the Galil. And his statements and his insights are always deep and always insightful. And in this case, particularly so. Rabbi berakhah says, it's in Vayikra Rabbah, Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LaMoshe, Lech emor lehem liYisrael, Kishahayiti noten lechem et haman, hayiti noten omer lekol echad be'echad mikam, hu dichtiv omer legolgolet. So, Rabbi berakhah says, in the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe, tell Yisrael, tell Bnei Yisrael, when I gave to you the man, the manna, the lechem min hashamayim, the manna, the bread that fell from heaven, when I gave you the man, I gave an omer's worth to each and every one of you. As it says, omer l'golgolet, an omer for each head count. V'achshav she'atem notnim li et ha'omer, ein li ele omer echad mikulchem. Now that Bnei Yisrael are giving me the omer, I only get one omer from all of you. V'lo od ela she'eno shel chitim, ela shel seorim. And not only that, it's not from wheat, which is a high-level grain, but from barley, which is a lower-level grain. Lefikach Moshe mazhir et Yisrael va'omer lehem v'havetem et ha'omer v'havetem et omer reshit k'tzirchem el kohen. So therefore, Moshe warn Bnei Yisrael and say to them, and you shall bring an omer of the first of your harvest. And that's Rabbi berakhah. He's interpreting the verse in a very nuanced way. The verse said, "V'havetem et omer reshit ketzirchem al kohen." You should bring an omer of the first of your harvest to the kohen. Normally, this is a very sensitive reading. Normally, when we're told to bring an offering, we're told what the offering is and then the measure of the offering, because it's what the offering is important. But here, Rabbi berakhah is noticing that the measure of the offering comes even before the nature of the offering. V'havetem et omer reshit ketzirchem el hakohen. Bring the omer's worth. Now, an omer it's a measure of volume, like a bushel, like a pint. Okay, so this seems to be what's important, and Rabbi berakhah associates this with another place where we see the term omer used, which is the man, the manna from heaven. Okay, he's telling us that the offering of the omer on the day after Pesach is essentially a zecher leman. It's a commemoration, a remembrance of the man, the manna that fell for Bnei Yisrael from heaven, that was their food throughout their wanderings in the desert. Okay, this is a deep, deep insight into what Sefirat Ha Omer is all about. The Omer offering itself, in other words, is a zecher leman, a commemoration of the man, something that we, Bnei Yisrael, bring as a whole, one Omer's worth, to commemorate the Omer of man that fell for each and every one of us through our wandering in the desert. So let's take a look at the sources, the verses that deal with the Yeridat HaMan, the falling of the man for Bnei Yisrael, and we may get a deeper sense of what's going on with this mitzvah. So here it is, this is in Parshat B'Shalach. The Torah says, Vayomer Hashem HaMoshe, Hineni mamtir lachem lechem min hashamayim. V'yatza ha'am v'laktu devar yom biyomo, Laman anasenu hayelech b'torati imlo. That's the introduction to the Yeridat HaMan, the falling of the man, which sustained Bnei Yisrael as their food in their wandering in the desert. Hashem said to Moshe, "Behold, I will rain down for you bread from heaven, and the nation, the people, will go forth and collect devar yom biyomo, an amount day by day, in order that I shall test them, will they walk in my Torah or not?" The beginning of the Yeridat HaMan, the falling of the man, this happens when Bnei Yisrael have left Egypt, but they've not yet arrived at Har Sinai. Okay, and they're in this middle period, and they're getting bread from heaven. That's to sustain them day by day. But this is called a test, and a test whether Bnei Yisrael will walk in my Torah or not. What kind of test is this? What's being tested here? As it goes on, as the account goes on to say that Bnei Yisrael had to learn that the man fell for them day by day. A certain amount falls. It says this is in Perek Tet Zayin Pasuk Tet Zayin. V'zeh davar asher tziva Hashem liktu mimenu ish lefi achlo omer legolgolet mispar nafshotechem ish lasher be'olo tikachu. And this is what Hashem commands, as Moshe says to Bnei Yisrael. Every person should collect of the man lefi achlo, according to what he can eat, and omer for each head count. According to the number of people in one's tent, you should collect. So the measure of an omer, as a volume measure, it's the measure of the amount of food a person eats in a day. Okay? Bnei Yisrael were commanded to collect this amount day by day, and as it comes clear in the Torah, the test is that Bnei Yisrael should have emunah, bitachon, should have faith and trust that they will get their sustenance, their omer of man each day by day, not to hoard it, not to try to collect too much, not to try to hold on to it, but to trust that they will get what they need day by day and live each day, day by day. That's the test. It's the first discipline that Bnei Yisrael get on their way towards receiving the Torah, and as a kind of preparation for receiving the Torah. They're learning this lesson of learning to trust Hashem day by day by day. Devar yom biyomo. Okay, and it goes on to say that if someone collected too much, they found at the end they still got an omer's worth of man. If they collected too little, they still found at the end they received an omer's worth of man. As it says in Pasuk Yudchet, "Vayamodu ba'omer v'lo ha'adif hamarbeh b'mam'it lo hechsir ish l'fiach lo lakatu." After they would collect the omer, they measured the omer of man, and whoever tried to collect more, he didn't get more, and whoever collected less didn't get less. They got each person got according to what he needed to eat. So this is the whole pattern of the Yeridat Haman and the learning, the Torah that they got from Yeridat Haman is a preparation for receiving Torah at Har Sinai, to learn this discipline of living day by day by day, Devar Yom B'Yomo. Towards the end of the account, it tells us that Ubnei Yisrael achlu et Haman 40 shana ad boam el eretz noshavet. Et Haman achlu ad boam el ktsei eretz Canaan. Bnei Yisrael ate the man for 40 years until they came to a settled land. They ate the man until they came to the edge of the land of Canaan, to the border of the land of Canaan. So this was their discipline. They learned to live day by day, and it's a learning to count day by day by day and take each day as it comes. And this really is what the mitzvah of Sefirat Ha Omer is about. It's a zecher laman, first of all, and it's in our counting day by day by day. We are learning to take each day on its own terms, to make each day count, so to speak. And this is our discipline. It's a deep spiritual discipline of emunah ubitachon, of faith and trust in Hashem, that prepares us for truly receiving the Torah at Sinai, and prepares us every year for receiving Torah. This is what we're doing in this period of time between Pesach and Shavuot. All of the Yomim Tovim throughout the year are in some way or another a zecher li'yetziat Mitzrayim, a commemoration of the going out of Egypt. Pesach obviously is a commemoration of going out of Egypt itself. Shavuot, the event of Kabbalat Torah, receiving the Torah after coming out of Egypt. Sukkot commemorates the shelters that we lived in as we traveled, coming out of Egypt through the desert on our way to Eretz Yisrael, or the Ananei HaKavod, the clouds of glory that protected us throughout our travels. So too, Sefirat Ha Omer, the mitzvah of Sefirat Ha Omer, is Zecher Lietziat Mitzrayim. It's a commemoration of going out of Egypt. It's the learning that we did. It was a spiritual discipline that we learned of trusting that Hashem provides our parnasah, provides our livelihood, devar yom b'yomo. So the counting of each day, and we were very specific about that counting. We want to make a whole count. We do it at the beginning of as the day starts, as the Rambam tells us in Hilchot Tamidim Musafim. It's all about learning to take day by day by day, each day on its own terms. That's the secret of Sefirat Ha Omer, as Zecher Li'ridat Haman, a commemoration of the falling of the man. Just to pull this all together in a very, very sharp and incisive way, we should take a look at what happens when the Bnei Yisrael come to the border of the land of Canaan, as it's described in Sefer Yehoshua in Perek Hey, in the 5th chapter. And there we'll see a very interesting echo of the language of the Torah and this mitzvah of Sefirat Ha Omer. Describes Bnei Yisrael coming to the border of Canaan and entering Eretz Canaan. V'yachanu Bnei Yisrael b'Gilgal. And when they first come into the land of Canaan, which is the land of Israel, they encamp at Gilgal. V'yasu et HaPesach ba'arba'asar yom l'chodesh ba'erev ba'arbot Yericho. And they come just in at Pesach, at the Yom Tov of Pesach, and they made Pesach on the 14th of the day of the month, in the evening, on the plains of Yericho, just inside the border of Eretz Yisrael. Vayochlu me'avor ha'aretz mimacharat ha'Pesach matzot v'klui be'etzem hayom hazeh. And they ate from the produce of the land, from the day after the Pesach, matzot and roasted grain on that very day. And you can hear the echo of the language from the Torah. Mimacharat HaShabbat, mimacharat HaPesach, be'etzem hayom hazeh. All this is being echoed in Yehoshua. This is Vayishbot Haman mimacharat, ba'achlam me'avor ha'aretz. And the man ceased falling from the next day in their eating me'avor ha'aretz, when they ate from the produce of the land. V'lo haya od libnei Yisrael man. Bnei Yisrael no longer had any manna. V'yochlu mituvat eretz Canaan b'shana hahi. And they ate from the produce of the land of Canaan in that year. So it's a very uncanny, a very, very, very sharp timing that Bnei Yisrael come into Eretz Yisrael right at Pesach. The very next day, they eat at Pesach the produce of the land, and the man stops falling. It's precisely on the day after Pesach, mimacharat Pesach, when they start to eat from the new produce. So it's clearly, it's a zecher laman, and not only that, what's being told to us here is that the man, which sustained Bnei Yisrael, lechem min hashamayim, bread from heaven for 40 years, as they come into Eretz Yisrael, now becomes lechem min haaretz, the bread and the produce of the land of Eretz Yisrael. It becomes transformed into the produce of Eretz Yisrael, to appreciate that now that we are in Eretz Yisrael, this amazing land, this miraculous land, where we're still sustained by Hashem with that sense of miraculous food, that even lechem min haaretz, the produce, the food that we get from the land of Israel, is still lechem min hashamayim. It's still bread from heaven as well. Okay, to have that consciousness that lechem min haaretz is still lechem min hashamayim. And that's the significance of the offering of the Omer and the counting of the Omer as a heker and a heter. It's a matir. It permits us, this consciousness, this awareness permits us to eat of the new grain, of the new harvests, with this appreciation that it's just as miraculous as bread coming from heaven, as bread coming from the earth. I should say that according to the Midrash, it's a Midrash Seichel Tov, but it's in Parashat Bo, the day on which the man began to fall was the 15th of Iyar of that year. That's when it first fell. Bnei Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim. They were eating matzah that they had baked on their way and continued baking on their way from Mitzrayim, from Egypt. And it was on the 15th of Iyar that the man began to fall. Today, actually, we're giving this talk is Pesach Sheni, the 14th of Iyar. Tonight is the 15th of Iyar. It's the night in which the man begins to fall. We're commemorating the Yeridat Haman with this talk, the falling of the man with this talk. Commentators ask a question. They say, wait a second. It says that Bnei Yisrael ate man for 40 years in their wanderings in the desert. Well, to be a little overly precise, it was 40 years minus a month. They spent a month eating matzah. It happened to that we're missing a month's worth of man here. But their answer is that the matzah that they brought out of Egypt had the taste of the man already in it. Okay, it's a cute answer, but the point is that they also recognized that even the matzah that they brought out of Egypt was miraculous and min hashemayim in its own way. And that's the consciousness that we should always have with all the food that Hashem provides us in our lives. So, Sefirat Ha Omer, we count the Omer, we are truly counting the Omer. We are counting the amount of food that Hashem gave us. An Omer is a day's worth of food. He gave it to us devar yom biyomo, each and every day on its own terms, day by day. And when we count the Omer and we appreciate that all of the gifts that we get from HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the way that He sustains us in our lives, the true Zecher Laman, we in this sense have inspiration and trust for emunah ubitachon, for faith and trust in Hashem that He provides for all our needs at all times. So maybe we all be blessed devar yom biyamo, to appreciate and take each day on its own from the gifts that Hashem gives us in deep gratefulness. Zecher Laman, as a commemoration of the man.
Okay.
Good enough.
So of course my question is totally opposite, but if the problem with being a slave is that you're day by day and you don't have a sense of preparation.
Right.
So really man holds you back.
Holds you back
By
like a
keeping
slave.
you, right, keeping you like a slave,
Interesting.
keeping that dependence.
Interesting. Yeah, but the slave is anxiously dependent. We're supposed to learn to be trustfully dependent. A little different, but whatever. Yeah, good point. Interesting point. All right, good enough.
Okay. All right. No, it seemed.
Got something. So
Huh?
Get better at it.
Yeah. No, I thought your preparation, your presentation was good. Okay.
It did help that you're there. So, rather than talking to the door.
Yes. Okay. Come on, stop. Turn off.
Wasn't off.
No, I'm trying to turn it off. Change the battery. I can't change.
Hopefully you got enough battery on it. Yeah.
Well, I was recording it. I mean, it was thinking in it.